Hey guys, and welcome to another month of the Cyber City Circuit soldering kits. This month we've got a fun one. It is our Bleep bug kit. We've actually had a friend of ours, @SignalSkew on Twitter, design this one for us. We're kind of sharing getting his name out there. And we definitely appreciate the help. Let's see what all we've got in this month's kit. Got our battery. Set that guy to the side. Our instructions. So our PCB, we've got a couple of side mount switches this time. A couple of capacitors. Some resistors. Let's see, we've got a 20K resistor and a 10 mega ohm resistor. And then we've got a socket and IC, and some of you guys have used the 555 timer before. This is actually a 556 timer, so it's actually two 555 timers built into one IC. And we've got a diode and a little speaker. So some of you guys may remember the Annoyatron or similar from back in the day as well. That's kind of what this kit is. It's something to annoy your parents, annoy your friends, annoy your animals, your pets. So we'll get started. First things first is normally, the smallest components go, or the lowest components on the PCB first. Once we get that done, then we'll start building the board up from there. And then we'll just follow along with the instructions. So I like doing the resistors first. And I've grabbed our red, black, and orange resistors, which, if we check our card that you would have gotten, that's going to be your 20K resistors. And these go in positions R1, R2, and R3. So I will bend the legs on these guys. Pull our paper off. So R1, R2, and R3. So R1 is over here. Bend it a little bit tighter. So R1. R2 is right over here in the same area next to the buzzer. And then we have R3 is going to be right in the center. And I'll just spread these guys out a little bit on the back so they all stay in position. Flip it over and solder it. Just remember, with anything else, there's always safety, solder safety. So make sure you're wearing your safety glasses. And your soldering iron obviously is hot. And then I like to use a fume extractor just to keep the fumes out of my face. And then when we're nipping these, we'll cut off the leads on the back. We want to make sure we do it away from ourselves. And try to catch them because we don't want them going into the floor, into the carpet, across the room. Just keep all of those pushed over to the side. So our 20Ks are now on there. Now let's do our 10 mega ohm, which is our brown, black, and blue color code. Let's get these guys bent, and these will go in R4, R5, and R6. So we have R4s down here towards the bottom. R5 is right next to it. And R6 is right next to it. Pretty simple. again, just bend the leads so they stay put. And tack them in place. And something you want to do, some of you guys are new with us this month, you want to make sure that you put enough heat on the pin itself and on the board so that it creates a nice fillet of solder connecting the two. You'll see it when it happens. It'll completely fill the circle and run all the way around the pin and kind of start drawing up the pin a little bit. And on some of your ground planes, which is more of your solid copper areas, you'll have to put a little bit more heat onto the board itself so that it draws that solder into it. It wicks the solder in. You may hear that from time to time. So I'll trim these. Alright, our next one we'll put our diode on. What this is going to do is diodes keep current from flowing backwards basically. So they block current from going backwards, and you'll see the stripe. That is normally on the side that is blocking. So we want to make sure that we match the stripe to the silkscreen on the PCB. And we'll just drop that guy right in as well. So we want current to flow from right to left. We don't want it to flow from left to right on this layout. These are a little bit thicker, so I can hold those leads while I trim them. Alright, so next thing, let's see, maybe our switches go next. I think that's going to be our next highest component. And over here on the side, you'll see that one acts as a on-off switch, off or armed, and the other will change the frequency of which is driving the 555 or the 556 timer over here. And what we're doing is we're charging a couple of capacitors up at different frequencies that then chirp a buzzer every now and again. So you'll see two different speeds, and it will be similar to a smoke alarm or something, you know, beeping every so often, enough to drive somebody crazy. So on this, what I'll do is I like to just hold with my finger the component onto the board, if you can see that there. I'll flip it over and just bring the solder up to it and just try to tack one into place. Once I get one leg tied into place, I'll do both components this way, but once I get one leg into place, then I can actually just set the whole thing down and solder the other pins. There we go. So I have two. They're lined up fairly well, and I will just solder the remaining pins. Alright, so that looks pretty good, and our switches are in place and they work, they hold. Our next one, I want to do the socket for the IC. And on the socket, you'll notice, just like on the silk screen up here at the top, there's a little notch. The socket gets a notch, and the IC also has a notch. We want to make sure all of those are lined up, because that means that you are putting it in the correct way. There's normally a pin 1 next to the notch, so you know it can only go in one direction. I'm going to do this one the same way. I'm going to hold it with my finger, just kind of pin it in place, loop that solder up to get one or two pins locked in. And then I can bring it down to the bench. solder each individual pin. Alright, now that we have that guy in, I'm going to do our battery next. And again, you'll notice the silkscreen of the PCB needs to match the battery so that we make sure positive is positive and negative is negative. So I'll hold that guy into place just like before. I can set it down and do the other pin. Alright. Maybe our buzzer goes next, and on the buzzer you'll notice that it's actually marked positive and then positive on the buzzer on one of the legs. So we want to make sure we match that up for polarity. And that guy will just drop right into place as well. And these legs are a little bit long, so I will trim them. These will shoot off very quickly, so I want to make sure that I aim it down. Try to catch those pieces. Same thing with the battery. They're a little bit sharp, so I'm just going to nip them. Just dull them out a little bit. Alright, our capacitors go in next. So on the capacitors, you'll notice that they have a stripe. On these electrolytic capacitors, that stripe is the negative side. You want to match it to the silkscreen so that negative is negative and correct polarity is there. I'm going to do one at a time because both of these capacitors are 10 microfarad, so they're identical. Let's see. I'm going to do the same as before. I'll just hold it and pin one of them. Get the other cap in the same way. Making sure that that marker matches, our polarity matches. Once that is in, I'll get the other pins locked into position. Trim these guys up. Go ahead and get our battery out because we will need that in just a second. Alright, last but not least is putting the IC and then of course the battery in. So with the IC, I'm going to slightly bend the pins in with my fingers just a little bit to make it fit in that socket a little bit better before I try to push it in there. And I want to make sure, again, that my notch lines up and that all of my pins look like they are going into the socket correctly. I don't want to miss a pin or bend a pin accidentally. Once I feel like it's lined up, I just push it in. And then we will put our button in next. Let's see on these guys. The button is going to go this way. There we go. That's a completed kit. Now let's turn it on and find out what happens. I'm going to put it on the fast frequency. So we should get a beep. I want to say it's every couple of minutes or so. But your kit should beep at you and give you that annoying tone. I don't know if you'll be able to hear this one or not. But that's it, the Bleep blog, the auditory annoyance device for this month. Hope you guys have fun with it and have fun soldering our kits. Be safe out there, And if you guys have any questions, please shoot us a message. We'll be happy to help. Thank you guys so much.